If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The Cleveland Browns once again find themselves at the center of debate after pulling the trigger on yet another quarterback move that has people scratching their heads. For months, the buzz around the league was that the Browns were overloaded at the position, juggling names like Joe Flacco, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, and, of course, Kenny Pickett. Everyone wondered how long this team could realistically carry 4 quarterbacks on a 53-man roster when every slot is valuable. Eventually, the front office made the expected cut, shipping Pickett to the Las Vegas Raiders right before the deadline. On the surface, it seemed like a routine business decision, but the reaction was far from quiet. Analysts, insiders, and even fans voiced confusion, with some asking why so much time was invested in a player only to move him for a mid-to-late draft pick. The loudest critic, however, was analyst Garrett Bush, who didn't hold back. Bush ripped the Browns in a passionate rant, questioning their entire approach to handling Pickett's situation. He argued that the franchise wasted crucial time, energy, and practice reps during camp, only to turn around and deal him for essentially the same value they acquired him for. According to Bush, if Cleveland had truly believed in Pickett's talent and upside, they would have committed to him long-term or at least kept him as insurance. Instead, he claimed the team set themselves back by giving Pickett valuable practice time that could have gone to grooming Gabriel or helping Flacco further acclimate to the system. His frustration wasn't just about the trade itself, but about the lost opportunity costs. Every rep in training camp matters, especially for quarterbacks learning timing and rhythm with their receivers. Bush hammered the point. What did the Browns gain by grooming a quarterback for another team? In his eyes, the process made zero sense. To be fair, Bush's criticism taps into a wider frustration that Browns fans have carried for decades, an organization that too often seems to trip over its own plans. This was supposed to be the offseason where Cleveland streamlined their approach, solidified the quarterback depth chart, and eliminated unnecessary drama. Instead, they once again find themselves explaining a move that doesn't quite add up. Critics note that the return, just a 5th-round pick, hardly justifies the investment. Meanwhile, supporters argue that Pickett wasn't going to win the job anyway, so cutting ties early avoided a bigger distraction. But the bigger question remains. Why bring him in at all if the leash was this short? Bush made it clear the team essentially ran in place, wasting development time. And when an analyst accuses a front office of squandering both preparation and momentum, that perception lingers, whether justified or not. In Cleveland, perception has always been a stubborn opponent. However, let's look at the other side of the argument, because the Browns do have a defense here. While Bush says Pickett was getting the bulk of reps, insiders report that wasn't necessarily the case. Pickett spent stretches of camp dealing with a hamstring issue, missing valuable opportunities to actually prove himself. Those lost days tilted the evaluation process. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel reportedly impressed the coaching staff with his poise and maturity, looking ahead of schedule for a rookie. That shifted the team's perspective. Rather than holding on to Pickett as an awkward insurance policy, they saw Gabriel as a real developmental piece worth investing in. Add to that Shedeur Sanders' raw potential and Flacco's veteran presence, and suddenly Pickett looked more like a spare part than a solution. When the Raiders came calling after Aiden O'Connell's injury, the Browns simply took the offer. It may not have been glamorous, but it was pragmatic. Still, Bush's larger point is that timing matters in the NFL, and Cleveland has struggled with that aspect for years. Trading a quarterback is rarely just about the transaction. It's about the ripple effects on the locker room, the coaching staff, and the narrative surrounding the team. By waiting until the final hour, the Browns created the impression that they were unprepared or indecisive. It fuels the criticism that this franchise reacts instead of plans, always scrambling for short-term fixes. Bush pointed to the wash nature of the trade. They gave up capital to get Pickett, gave him reps that could have gone elsewhere, then traded him for the same capital, essentially spinning in circles. For a team trying to prove it belongs among contenders, that's the last kind of storyline you want hanging over your season. Even when the roster looks stronger, distractions can undo progress before the first kickoff. Now, from the Raiders' perspective, this was a low-risk, high-reward move. They get a quarterback with starting experience, one who has shown flashes of competence for the price of a mid-round pick. With O'Connell sidelined, Las Vegas desperately needed depth, and Pickett brings at least a measure of security. If he fails, the cost was minimal. If he succeeds, the Raiders look shrewd. For Pickett himself, this might be a lifeline, though the odds of him reclaiming a full-time starter role are slim. Bouncing around 4 teams in as many years paints him as more of a stopgap than a solution. But sometimes, a change of scenery does wonders. Perhaps the Raiders' scheme or coaching staff can unlock something that never clicked in Cleveland. Still, the move speaks more to the Browns' mismanagement than the Raiders' gamble. The optics, again, fall heavily on Cleveland's shoulders, not on Pickett's talent. Cleveland's supporters argue that in the end, none of this matters if the current roster produces. The Browns enter the season with their best option under center, a stable veteran presence, and a promising rookie waiting in the wings. Gabriel's development could be the real story of the year, giving fans hope that the team finally has a succession plan. Flacco brings the battle-tested leadership needed for a playoff push. Sanders, while raw, adds excitement for the future. In that context, losing Pickett feels like a footnote. Winning cures all, and if the Browns start the season strong, Bush's critique will fade into background noise. But if the offense struggles, every questionable decision, including this trade, will resurface under the microscope. That's the double-edged sword of roster moves in Cleveland. Success hides them, failure exposes them. The Browns don't have much margin for error when credibility is already fragile. Bush's rant, fiery as it was, ultimately highlights a truth about how we analyze sports. Fans and analysts crave logic and linear narratives. We want every roster move to connect like puzzle pieces forming a bigger picture. But front offices often operate in shades of gray, balancing injuries, market value, practice performance, and long-term plans. To the outside world, trading Pickett might look like spinning wheels, but inside the building, it could simply be about clearing clutter and creating cohesion. The Browns coaches might have decided they saw enough, knew the ceiling, and wanted to cut ties quickly. That doesn't mean Bush is wrong. His points about wasted reps are fair. It just means context complicates the conversation. And in Cleveland, context often gets drowned out by decades of skepticism. This franchise has conditioned its critics to assume incompetence, even when decisions have hidden layers that don't reveal themselves immediately. At the end of the day, the Browns' quarterback carousel continues to provide endless content, both for analysts like Bush and fans eager for stability. Pickett is gone, the depth chart is set, and Cleveland turns the page once again, hoping this chapter finally leads to consistency. The real test won't be whether they got enough in return for Pickett. It will be whether the quarterbacks they kept can deliver when it counts. Gabriel has to prove the hype isn't just preseason fluff. Flacco has to prove his arm still holds up through a long campaign. Sanders has to prove patience is worth the investment. If those things align, no one will remember the 5th rounder. But if the Browns stumble, the critics will be loud, pointing back at wasted time, wasted reps, and wasted opportunities. That's the reality for Cleveland. Every move is magnified, every misstep amplified, until winning silences the noise. So, where does this leave Kenny Pickett? His career is at a crossroads. Once seen as a first-round talent with a future as a franchise quarterback, he now carries the label of journeyman. For him, the Raiders represent both a fresh start and possibly a final chance to prove he belongs as more than a backup. Every snap he takes in silver and black will be scrutinized, every throw weighed against the expectations he once carried. If he flounders, he risks becoming a permanent fixture on the NFL carousel of expendable arms. If he thrives, he could rewrite his narrative entirely, from cast-off to comeback story. And for the Browns, they'll be watching from afar, knowing they played a part in shaping that path. Whether Garrett Bush is proven right or wrong depends not only on Cleveland's season, but also on how Pickett handles this next chapter of his turbulent career. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. It's official, folks, and the city of Cleveland can barely contain its excitement. Nick Chubb is back in brown and orange, and the entire NFL is buzzing with what this means for the Browns' immediate future. After months of speculation, whispers of contract negotiations, and the uncertainty surrounding his recovery, the star running back has signed on to lead the charge once again. Fans have waited patiently, almost nervously, for this confirmation, and now the streets of Cleveland are filled with hope and adrenaline. Chubb's return isn't just about having a great running back in the backfield. It's about restoring identity, grit, and belief to a franchise that has been clawing for respect and chasing the ultimate dream. The message is clear. The Browns aren't just participating this year, they're gunning for glory, and with Chubb back in the lineup, the word Super Bowl suddenly doesn't feel like an exaggeration. What makes this story even more thrilling is the journey Nick Chubb has taken to get here. We all know his reputation as a powerhouse runner, someone who thrives on contact, shrugs off tackles, and wears down defenses with relentless determination. But what many people might not fully realize is just how steep the climb has been for him after a devastating knee injury that left questions about whether he could return to his elite form. For months, analysts debated whether the Browns should rely on him again, whether his body could handle the punishment of another grueling NFL season, and whether his contract would become a burden. Yet, against all odds, Chubb silenced doubters with his resilience, his discipline in rehab, and his burning desire to get back on the field. His signing doesn't just represent a tactical advantage. It's a testament to the human willpower that resonates deeply with both teammates and fans alike. Cleveland knows heartbreak like few other sports towns, but it also knows loyalty, and Chubb embodies that spirit better than anyone. He isn't the loudest star in the league. He doesn't flood headlines with drama or social media antics. But his quiet consistency and warrior mentality have made him beloved in Ohio. Every time he lowers his shoulder for that extra yard, every time he refuses to go down on first contact, the Dawg Pound erupts in appreciation because they see themselves in him. Hardworking, blue-collar, relentless. Bringing him back is more than a roster move. It's a statement about the kind of football Cleveland wants to play. Tough, old-school, smash-mouth football that earns respect the hard way. And make no mistake, with him leading the backfield, the Browns are sending a warning to every contender in the AFC. Cleveland isn't just showing up to compete, they're here to dominate. Of course, whenever a big signing like this happens, the rumor mill spins out of control, and insiders are whispering about how this move impacts the locker room dynamic. There's talk of renewed energy during training camp, with players feeding off Chubb's presence like they've been given an adrenaline shot. Coaches are reportedly thrilled, adjusting playbooks and schemes to highlight his strengths, knowing full well that a healthy Nick Chubb opens up possibilities for the passing game, forces defenses to stack the box, and gives quarterbacks breathing room. The word balance is being thrown around because Chubb's return isn't just about individual production, it's about creating harmony in the offense. Suddenly, wide receivers are talking about having more one-on-one opportunities. The offensive line feels more motivated to prove they can pave the way, and even the defense believes that with longer, sustained drives, their job just got a little easier. Naturally, fans are already daring to dream bigger. The Browns have flirted with relevance before, but the combination of Chubb's return, a talented roster, and a city starved for a championship has created an electric atmosphere. Social media is flooded with highlights of his best runs, montages of stiff arms and breakaway sprints, and declarations that this is the year. Some might call it premature optimism, but you can't underestimate the psychological impact of a player like Chubb. His presence alone elevates the confidence of the fanbase and turns skeptics into believers. Bars and living rooms across Cleveland are already planning Super Bowl watch parties months in advance, because when Chubb is in the backfield, hope feels real. And in sports, momentum often starts with belief before it translates to results. With every rumor, every report, every insider note, the sense grows. Cleveland's time may finally be arriving. But let's not overlook the fact that pressure comes hand in hand with this level of hype. The Browns now find themselves under the microscope, with analysts lining up to question whether this really is their breakthrough season. Some critics argue that one man, even one as dominant as Nick Chubb, cannot single-handedly deliver a Lombardi trophy. Others wonder about durability, about whether the Browns' offensive line can hold up for a full season, and about the consistency of the quarterback position. And yet, every time these concerns surface, they're met with counterarguments that point to Chubb's track record. Few running backs in the league combine his blend of vision, power, and patience, and even fewer have the kind of locker room respect he commands. For now, The noise only seems to fuel him, and if anything, the scrutiny might make Cleveland even more dangerous. Insiders are also hinting that Chubb's return is inspiring potential free agents and even current players considering extensions. There's a sense that when your cornerstone star commits to the city, others want to be part of that story. Rumors are swirling that veterans who might have otherwise tested the market are suddenly reconsidering because they see Cleveland as a legitimate contender. The NFL is full of calculated business decisions, but it's also driven by emotion, and Chubb's loyalty could spark a ripple effect. Some league insiders even suggest that agents are monitoring this situation closely, knowing their clients want a shot at a Super Bowl run without joining already crowded super teams. Cleveland has always been seen as an underdog destination, but with Chubb planting his flag, the narrative is shifting. The Browns might not just be building a team, they're building a movement. If you zoom out, what's happening in Cleveland right now feels bigger than football. Sports have a way of embodying the hopes of a community, and with Chubb back, the Browns are becoming a symbol of resilience and ambition. In a city that has seen its fair share of struggles, both on and off the field, this return feels like a collective victory. It's no longer just about Sundays in the fall. It's about pride, unity, and belief in something larger. The buzz in local media, the chatter in sports radio, and the endless speculation online are all feeding into a storyline that could define the entire season. People are calling it destiny, fate, or just plain hard work paying off, but one thing is clear. Cleveland has rallied behind Nick Chubb, and in doing so, they've reignited their own fire. What happens next is anyone's guess, but if history tells us anything, it's that Chubb thrives in the role of the silent assassin. He doesn't need the spotlight or the headlines to validate his greatness. Instead, he prefers to let his legs do the talking, to grind out yard after yard until defenses break. Coaches know it. Teammates respect it, and opponents fear it. Rumors suggest that inside the facility, there's an unspoken understanding. As long as Nick Chubb is on the field, they always have a chance. That kind of quiet confidence is contagious, and it's starting to spread beyond Cleveland, with analysts across the league adjusting their playoff predictions. This isn't smoke and mirrors. It's the real thing, a tangible shift in momentum powered by one of the most reliable workhorses in football. So here we are, standing on the edge of a new season, with whispers turning into roars and rumors solidifying into reality. Nick Chubb's official return to Cleveland is more than a roster update. It's a seismic moment for the NFL landscape. Fans are already imagining playoff scenarios. Rival teams are quietly recalibrating their defensive strategies, and the media is circling like sharks around a potential Cinderella story turned powerhouse. The road to the Super Bowl is brutal, filled with obstacles, injuries, and unpredictability, but Cleveland now believes they have the weapon to conquer it. And maybe, just maybe, that belief is the most dangerous weapon of all. Because when you combine raw talent, unshakable determination, and a city united in passion, the possibilities are endless. One thing is certain, the NFL better take notice, because the Browns, led by Nick Chubb, are officially coming for everything. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!